thanks very much for coming. The last session, I really appreciate you not kind of going off and having beers and enjoying yourself. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. I'm here to talk about smart speakers. Are they joyful or are they painful? Are they overhyped? How do we feel about this? Does anyone think smart speakers are overhyped? Yeah? No? Yes? Some people do? Okay, great, that's interesting. I mean, one could argue another question. Is everything on voice a bit rubbish? Some people say yes. I say no. I'm going to say no to that. I don't think it's rubbish. I don't think they're overhyped. The problem is our expectations are far too high, right? We're sold down the river by films like this, Have you seen Her? Oh my God, wouldn't it be amazing if Scarlett Johansson bot came and kind of waxed lyrical into our ear and messaged us and told us how wonderful we are, and while also sorting out our calendar and, sending our mum flowers. But that's not going to happen. It might not even happen, that personalized AI might not even happen in my lifetime. But that's what we're led to believe these devices can do when we open them out of the box. We buy them for 30, 50 euros, and we think, so all of a sudden we've got a kind of, a Scarlett Johansson bot. It's not going to happen. Our expectations are too high. Okay, so I think what I'm going to talk about is about kind of what we can do, and also challenge you in the room to try and come up with some kind of content that actually may encourage and excite audiences, and hopefully make them feel like they're not disappointed in the devices. One of the things you do find when you ask it a question, most commonly if you ask an Alexa or a Google Home a question, is you kind of say, quite a straightforward, maybe a little bit complicated question. Sorry, didn't quite get that. And that might be a bit frustrating. Alexa, when can I have a really great discussion with you about politics and education and economics?
I don't know that.
Oh, she doesn't know. Because at the moment, they can't quite do that, and it's a bit unsatisfying. And maybe when you unwrap them, some people, I imagine, who got them for Christmas this year may have decided, actually, I'm just going to put that in the drawer. I'm just going to put it in the drawer, and with those chargers for those phones that I got in 2010, and that drawer just keeps hidden, and I'm sure it'll be useful one day. But listen, I'm not a downer on voice at all. I'm actually a big supporter of voice and personal assistants, because that's my job. I've actually been hired by BBC R&D to explore voice and make content for that platform. And I don't want to kind of poo-poo it and say it's really rubbish. It's not. My job, I've been working in voice sector for 1.5 years, and it is a sector now, which is quite exciting. 1.5 years, and we were talking earlier, and I was like, I feel like I'm an expert. It's 1.5 years, and I've kind of learned all this information, and I can pass it on to you guys. But I do have some relevant background knowledge as well, which I'll tell you in just a sec. But what I've been doing in the last 1.5 years is exploring things like, how do we ask for music when we don't know what the artist is? What might an interactive audio documentary sound like? What are recipes on the internet going to be, or through voice, going to be like? And really kind of exploring some of these challenges. I haven't got all the answers just yet, but that's been kind of fun trying. So my background is in music radio initially. I used to produce music radio. If anybody saw Giles Peterson earlier, I used to work with him, and some other kind of BBC talent, which if you're from the UK, you might recognize. And after that, I started working, I did a few interactive audio games, one of which was this one, Papa Sangre. And so I kind of, those skill sets that I got from working in music radio and then looking at kind of audio-only games have really led me on to kind of be, I feel, well-placed to work in voice. And it's quite interesting, actually, people who are working in voice, it's a really multidisciplinary team, because some people come from radio, some people from UX design, some people obviously engineers, game designers, and all these skills are kind of being thrown into a pot, and we're coming up with interesting and kind of great bits, hopefully, bits of content and exploring this space. And it's really nascent, and I would really encourage you, all to get involved. It's a really exciting space. And as I said, the talk is really to try and hopefully excite you about this space and try and encourage you to join me on that path. So my interest in voice is part of a wider interest in sort of developments in terms of in audio at the moment, right? I think it's so exciting where we are in audio. If you're an audiophile right now, like this is boom time, yeah? Because you've got personalization, you've got voice activation, streaming, obviously, and it's a really brilliant moment. Podcasts, on-demand content. I think we should call this really the golden age of digital audio. Yeah, it's so exciting. It's brilliant time to listen and to create in this space. But as I said, at the moment, I'm working predominantly in the voice space. So what do we know about voice? Well, the devices are selling, right? 44 million sold so far, apparently, was the last number I heard. People have them in their kitchens, smart speakers in their kitchens, all over the world, starting in English language. I think Google Home are coming to Holland later this year. We're seeing, India, various languages all around the world. And it's not just Google and Amazon. There's obviously big Chinese companies like Baidu as well, kind of in this space too. And it's not just smart speakers, is it? Of course. You can tell your TV, your Samsung, your TiVo, change the channel, pause the TV. Your telephone, Google Assistant is huge on Android, Siri, etc., right? It's in your car, okay? It will be in our cars soon. It's in an infinite number of devices being connected. And if you look at the Amazon store, there's 200 Alexa-enabled products on there at the moment, okay? So if you think about that, it's going to become an omnipresent way of humans talking to machines. It's not the only way we're going to talk to machines, for sure. I'm not blinded by that. It's definitely not the only way, but it's a way. But it's also a way that machines will talk to machines, right? They're going to communicate to each other. And also, weirdly, if you think this is interesting or exciting, Google have just recently announced a duplex, which is machines pretending to be humans talking to humans, where you can, the Google Assistant will phone up your hairdresser and book you an appointment, never telling them that it's actually the assistant. So spooky. So I think actually that's raises an interesting point, and there's lots of discussion around this, around the role of the personal assistant, because if you have you have an assistant and everything is something which is designed to be given orders to, yeah? So I may order my device to, maybe I'm feeling a bit lazy, don't want to check on the internet, what's the weather? Turn on the music, yeah? Maybe I'm feeling, can you just turn the lights off? Or I'm thinking, it's a lot of orders and kind of asking somebody to do something, and it's not always done politely. Has anyone here, who's got a device or who uses? Okay. Do you find yourself talking politely to it? Or sometimes do you have to kind of shout a bit? You do end up shouting a bit, don't you? Yeah, and if you know that Amazon released a children's device where the children had to say please and thank you, yeah, presumably because parents were getting frustrated of hearing their kids barking orders, right, at these devices. Come on, turn it off! Right? My kids do. Echo, echo! I hear them screaming at the device, right? So I wonder, and there's some thinking around this at the moment, I wonder what behavioral precedents these devices are setting, because we're sort of saying, do this, do that, I'm the master, you are my servant, you are my assistant, right? Make me do this for me. And I just wonder, I have some nerves about this, is this the way we should be communicating to machines? When you hear children barking at machines, what kind of example is that? But then on the flip side, I also think, well, hold on a sec, we're marching towards a singularity, right, where machines might get cleverer than us. Maybe it's a good thing we're barking orders at machines, because maybe the opposite is them listening to us, them monetizing us, them being in charge of us. Maybe I'm being a bit of a sci-fi drama queen here, but maybe that's also scary too. Or is there a kind of third way? Is there a way where we can be a bit more equal to machines, where we can have honest dialogue, where we can have open dialogue, where we can have kind of entertaining dialogue, where we can learn from machines and machines can learn from us, right? That would be, in my naive world, wouldn't that be great? And I think one way of doing that, or at least a small step towards that, is to create engaging content, yeah? And what I mean by that is content that is funny, right? You're listening to your devices and you're thinking they're funny. I'm laughing, I'm not just ordering you around. I'm having a conversation with you. I'm genuinely having an interaction with you. And therefore, I'm not just saying, can you order me a taxi, order me a pizza, open this song, do this. Actually, there's more of a two-way dialogue. And that's what I'm aspiring to do when I'm creating content for these devices. And one of the interesting things about these devices is that at the moment, they're quite limited in what they can do, which is why they can be a bit disappointing, right, and frustrating when you first turn them on, because you want it to do more, right? And the technology at the moment doesn't allow us to do things. So for makers, that can be quite frustrating, right? They have this thing where there's sort of two different interaction models, and this definitely applies for Google and for Amazon, where you can either have long-form content like Spotify or Audible, but within that long-form content, you only have very basic controls, like skip, pause, resume. Yeah, you can't actually speak to your devices in this kind of streaming model beyond just basic instruction. Or you have the more interactive model, right, where you can program it to answer and ask lots of different utterances, right? But with that, you only have about, if you're working in audio, where I am, you only have 90 seconds, 2 minutes worth of audio before you have to ask another question, right? That's a real constraint when you're designing a bit of content at the moment, okay? So this is a kind of, age-old thing, but hey, look, constraints can be creative too, right? It gives you some parameters when you're working toward, and you're thinking, well, I can either work in one model or the other. Can I come up with something exciting and dynamic within those constraints? So an example being that we made an interactive science fiction drama last year called The Inspection Chamber. There's 4 characters. 2 of the characters are scientists, and they are inspecting you. You're a character, you're the being, okay, and you're being inspected to find out what kind of being you are. It's basically an interview format, right? So every 90 seconds, you get asked another question, right? But the listener doesn't really realize that the system's being hacked. We're trying to do it in a kind of a narrative way to make it enjoyable. I'll play you a little clip of video and you'll get what I mean. It's just the kind of setup, so, well, you'll see what I mean. Have a listen.
Hello, my name is Dave. I hope life has been comfortable in the containment area. I suppose you might call it the kitchen, or the bedroom, or the living room. That's your choice. The scientists are nearly ready to meet you and start the inspection. You're not one we've seen before, and it's the job of the scientists to identify everything we've never seen before and incorporate it into the database. You might even be the last thing they ever have to identify before they go home. That makes you quite special. Do you feel special?
Sometimes. Yes.
Lovely. That's one for the album. To be honest, I'd marked you down as special anyway. Now, it's probably best if you assume a position where we can take a proper look at you. Perhaps stop what you're doing, sit down, and come close. As part of the inspection, you will have to answer some questions like this. Dream or reality? Which one?
Dream. Reality.
Very well, reality it is. Now, if you ever feel a bit lost, just ask for help. I'm afraid I can't always promise to help you. But it always feels good to say it out loud, doesn't it? Help! Ha 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 ha. Seriously.
Anyway, As I said, that was just the setup, really, but it is quite fun. If you play it, it's on Alexa, enable inspection chamber, have a go. And I think, that was using the limitations. It was a prototype, but it's kind of good to have a play. And I think one of the interesting things is, those limitations and those kind of confines of the new technology, actually, embrace them, right? We should embrace them and make the most of them, because in like 10, 20 years' time, we might look back at this moment and go, hey, do you remember when Alexa, we might not, but sad losers like me might, when you go, hey, remember when we could only have short form content? Or remember when it always just said sorry all the time, right? If I'm 42 and I think nostalgically about spinning my cassette tapes on a biro, right? And I think about the lovely noise of crackle of records, and sometimes those things define a medium, right? The sort of limitations define it. And I think I'm just going to rip the quote, so I should actually give the right. There we go. It's a Brian Eno quote. Whatever you find weird, ugly, and uncomfortable and nasty about a new medium will surely become its signature. And I think that's really exciting. So kind of thinking with voice devices, stuff that we find clunky, we might feel quite kind of nostalgic about, or our children might feel nostalgic about when they grow up. So anyway, that's I think one way is to kind of embrace the constraints of these devices and create something that is, really exciting around the constraints. And the other way is just to kind of totally throw it out the window, right? You can do it your own way, yeah? Just be an artist and go, this is all wrong, I want to make it my way. And I think this is really exciting. And that might mean that you can't release something right now. Yeah, you can't make a voice skill because the technology doesn't allow you to right now. But what you can do is that you could do like a hack version of it together. You could do some kind of prototype that you can show the platform owners and stuff. This is where you want to go. This is where we think the technology should go, right? And that is really important. We need people who can kind of break the rules. What's that phrase that's going around at the moment? Be more pirate. Really mess it up a bit. Yeah, in order to kind of inspire and tell us where we need, the voice platform to go. I was kind of looking around last week about what I could show. It demonstrates kind of somebody doing something quite creative, and this grad student from America sent me his video, and he's just basically like, he's a script writer, he's not a developer, and he said, I want to write a drama that features Alexa, and So I learned some JavaScript, wrote the drama, and I just thought, okay, I'm just going to put it together. His name is Trip Venturella, and I just thought, what, it's really cool. I'm going to play you a bit of it, just because it's somebody thinking imaginatively about what you can do in this space. Here we go. All right.
Alexa, ship status report.
It's another sci-fi.
Ship's engines are functioning at full capacity. Antimatter reactors at 50% capacity. Shields are fully charged.
Analyze alien vessel.
Vessel is of unknown origin and unknown material. Analysis indicates we are in a situation of first contact with unknown species.
Set coordinates for 30 degrees off the galactic mean armed photon missile base.
Captain?
Armed photon missiles.
Why do you always arm the weaponry?
Because they're an unknown vessel and might be aggressive.
Why don't you ever ready the sick bay? Or the hydroponics? Why greet them with missiles and not food and medicine?
Can you please follow the order?
I don't believe arming is appropriate. It may initiate conflict.
Alexa, run a conflict probability analysis of arming versus preparing food in sickbay.
No.
I won't play you the whole thing, but it's really cool. Do look him up, Trip Venturella. And I just really like what he's done. He's just stretching the medium, pushing the boundaries a little bit and from a creative side. And that's what the people are my colleagues at R&D are doing as well. They're exploring the space. They're tinkering. They're kind of, they're picking apart what the device can do. Like somebody is genuinely, this is what goes on. They are exploring how when you're reading in haikus into a device, you can make semantically analyze those haikus and produce music out of it. Right, that's happening. And they're also exploring how to turn the devices into instruments. They're looking at 1960s hipster kind of literature and thinking, how can you randomize it? This is the kind of stuff that it's not going to be mainstream. It's not going to be a massive product on the BBC. It's just exploring and testing the boundaries of what these devices can do in order just to kind of stretch it and go, okay, this is what it's capable of. And I think that's what it's really exciting. That's what artists should do, right? That's what we should be doing, stretching and testing. There's this lovely phrase that Daniel Bowen-Jaunt said, and he's talking about VR here, but I think the same applies in voice. Okay? Over time, the behaviors of the avant-garde transfers down to the early adopters and eventually the mainstream, right? I wouldn't be surprised if amongst you guys, there are creatives, builders, doers, designers, right? The voice needs people like you to come in, stretch the boundaries, push things forwards, work out whether it's through the constraints, whether it's through being more kind of avant-garde and chucking the rules out of the window, but make it better. If you think it's disappointing now, make it better, okay? Because we have a mass market device that is in homes, on phones, in cars, and it's only getting more, it's only getting bigger, right? And it's a really amazing opportunity. Don't think of it as a smart speaker, okay? Think of it as a computer with power that we can interact with, okay? And it's such an opportunity to create kind of moments of joy and wonder for going into the next few years. Thank you very much.